Hi everyone, it's Denise with Wondubar Crafts. I'm back to start a new project. This one is a sewing project. I had shown you guys this from the Red Button Quilt Company. It is a pattern called Oh Joy. It's got a snowman, and I picked it up when I was up in New Hampshire when we had visited Maine from the Calico Basket Quilt Shop. This pattern, you can purchase it from redbuttonquiltcompany.com or co.com. I will leave that link down below in the description bar. You can purchase the pattern and the buttons together. I do believe it is, I want to say it's $12.95. I'm pretty sure that's what it was when I checked. But it does not come with the fabric. The quilt company I purchased it from actually put the packet together with this. So anyway, so I'm not going to share the directions. I'm just going to go over it with you and I will speak them. So if you want to write them down, you want to do whatever, you can do that. Or if you would prefer to actually have the pattern to go along with, because I cannot share, because of copyright, I cannot share the directions or the pattern for the snowman. So you could easily find, I would imagine, your own online somewhere if you wanted. But the easiest thing to do is just to order it directly from them and you could follow along. These are, I'm going to go through everything that comes with it. This is my second take. I kind of did a boo-boo on the first one, but it was okay because I still had enough fabric to do what I needed to do. I went ahead and pre-cut it out to make sure. Otherwise, I was going to have to grab another fat quarter. So iron all your fabric pieces out. I use a pen, a water pen. This one, you know, it looks like it's stained, but it's stained, but it's not coming off. It's just water. But I do use it in the creases and the lines. It kind of helps to get a lot of them out. I do know some people will use like a spray starch, or they'll use like a magic, what is that called? A magic sizing, I think it is, or something like that. I don't like to use those kind of things on my fabric because I don't pre-wash my fabrics when I do my quilts. Some people do. I was always told not to. So then that way when you do wash the quilt, it shrinks. If there's any shrinkage, it will shrink together. Versus if you wash your quilt fabrics and it shrinks and then it may shrink again, it will distort you. It can distort your blocks. So I've always been told always wash after, if you're going to wash. With wall hangings, I don't typically wash unless I need to take them down and, you know, wash them off the wall for dust or whatever. So, but anyway, so because of that, I don't like to use that because it sometimes will make the fabric so stiff, and then it flakes over time because it is a starch. So, you know, just be wary of that if you do use it. The kit does come with 3 black buttons and 7 snowflake buttons. So I'm going to put those in here so we don't lose them. You will also need some DMC floss, or you can use any other floss that you want in those colors. You need a black, and I do believe this is Ercu, off-white. That's what's called. And then it calls for these 3 colors, 780, which is like a burnt orange. I don't know if you can see it. It almost looks brown. Let's see if I can get a little closer here so you can see it in the light. I had much better light this morning. I apologize. It is, it's not quite afternoon yet, but it's close. So anyways, there you go. It's like a burnt orange. This 898, which is brown, and 902, which is supposed to be dark red. To me, it kind of looks more like a maroon. I don't know if you can see. I'm trying to pick up a really good light on there. Anyways, it is it's a very dark, almost a maroony red. And then I got Coats and Clark. This is very similar to this color here. It's very close. You probably see this color a little better. It is Coats and Clark, and the number on it was 41A on there. Focus, focus, focus. Anyways, it's 41A. All right, I'll leave the Coats and Clark number and your DMC threads down in the description block below. I will not do that though with the sizes of the fabric. You'll have to either stop and write it down or something. But anyways, I'm going to use this one for piecing my pieces together. You will also need a 3 by 3 inch red wool, like a dark red wool, and a piece that is 1 by 1.5 inches of orange wool. If you don't or can't find wool, don't have it, can't find it, you can use felt. Okay. And then you need a 4 by 7 inch of cotton batting. This is natural cotton batting, I can tell because of the color in it, but you'll need that for the snowman. All right, so let's throw these in here so I do not lose them. And this, because we'll use that later. And then you're going to need a small bit of fusible, this is fusible interfacing. You can use webbing, whatever. I'll just use this because it's interfacing. I thought when I had grabbed it originally, I had grabbed the webbing, you know, the fusible webbing, but this will work just as good. So it's just to keep it stiff and to be able to tack it on to your other fabric. So I believe it'll do the same thing. So I think. If not, I know I can always go get, I don't know, I think it's fusible. It may be fusible just on one side, maybe both. We'll find out, won't we? Because normally I get it off the roll, but they didn't have any, so she directed me to this, and I thought, okay, I'll just grab whatever she said, and I think she grabbed interfacing and not the webbing. But you do need a little small piece of fusible webbing there. But we'll see if that will work. If not, I'm sure I can tack it down with something. So hold on, please. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I had to take that. I may have another one coming up. It's from my the company I bought a sewing machine from. I'm supposed to have access to some videos and having trouble getting into it. So anyway, all right. So you are going to need an 18 by 20 inch for your like a tan cream colored. I would call this a cream colored, or tan. Some people say it's tan, some people say it's cream colored, but it needs to be tan and red. So for your backing, really you can use just about anything you want for your backing. So you know, a lot of people like to coordinate it. This came with it. It's a cream, and it looks like it's got a cream on cream or cream on tan with a few little white, red little dots on there. So it kind of goes with it. So try and find something that kind of goes. If not, you can just simply use white if you want it. Or black. Doesn't matter. But it needs to be 18 by 20 minimally. I would say a fat quarter will do just fine on that one. Then you will need, this is the piece that I cut. See, I've already cut my pieces out from it because I made a boo-boo, because I was, for some reason, thinking this piece was this piece, and it was not. So anyway, I had to go back and mark that that's the background piece. But you need a piece of a fat quarter of cream and red print for your blocks. So this one is cream and it has red stars on it, but you do need a fat quarter of it. All right. And then you are going to need a 10 by 12 inch. That is, they call this tan and red. It is tan on the background, but it's kind of got like more of a red forefront pattern. So, and that's kind of what it is on the, if you look here, it's kind of like where you can really see the red. It's kind of like a calico style print. So, or a geometric print on there somewhere. So 10 by 12 inch. Then you're going to need 3 in reds, 3 different reds. All right, so they can be all dark if you want. You can have them lighter. You could have them, you know, a dark, a medium, and a light. It looks like here they chose 2 darks and a medium for it, or a light, whatever you want to call it. But it is, I wouldn't say that's quite fully red, but it's close enough. It matches, and it does have some tan in it, so it will go okay. But 3 each pieces that are 10-inch squares. So 10, you know, 10 by 10. Those will be for your block. This one, I don't know where my tag went to on it, but I'm going to have to re-iron those too. This is a quarter yard. So the full length, which is 44, you know, or yeah, 44 inches by a quarter yard, which is 9 inches is a quarter yard. So, but you need this in a dark red, in a solid. So it can be either solid, or see how this has a very light moda in there. So it's a solid color. It has no print. Okay. They say that's not a print. So, and then you'll need 5 or 6, depending on how you want to do it. It's totally up to you. They gave me 6, so I'm going to use all 6 of cream colored 4-inch squares. So 4 by 4, either 5 or 6 of them. They're cream prints, so like a cream on, like a tone on tone kind of thing. So, so you'll need those. I'm going to need to re-iron those because they kind of sat on the other. So, that being said, we have already cut, I have already cut the cream and red because it was, for some reason I had it marked and thought it was a piece for my background, but it is not. So you'll need the tan and red background piece. So let me grab it. And from it, we will cut, come on, Denise. Okay. Remember, this is the 10 by 12 piece. All right. This is for our background, for where the snowman goes. We need to cut a 9.5 by 11.5 inch from here. Now, if you'll notice, my mat is upside down. And the reason why I've done that is because normally I would cut from my left to going to my right on my cutting board. However, because my camera piece holder is here off onto the left-hand side, I have to do it opposite so I don't bang it. So anyway, so 9.5, we are actually, okay, 12. So we'll cut this piece 11, and it is 10.5 by 12.5 piece. So we need to cut it down. We'll square it off. It looks like it's fairly squared off there. Okay, so we need, let's see, once again, 9, always check before you cut. Check, measure, check, measure, check, measure, you know, always. Because I didn't do that with my first piece. Well, I did the cutting okay. It was checking the fabric to make sure it was the right one. So, because I normally mark them, and like you see the little tabs, I normally mark them. But okay, 9.5 by 11.5. So this one I'm going to cut it 11.5. So, and if you are, just trying this out. Hopefully it will not be too difficult for you. It is a fairly simple piece, but you know, I understand that not everyone sews and not everyone quilts. I always keep my scraps for you never know what. Some sort of other program. Some other craft, I'm sure. Okay. So we went 11 and a half. Double check it. 11 and a half by, we need it now 9 and a half. Double check one more time. 9 and a half. 9 and a half by 11 and a half. Okay. And everyone is more, you got to find what's comfortable for you on how you cut, how you know, everyone always says, this is the right way. No, you're doing it wrong. No, you're not. And listen to how they say, because sometimes you will, okay, 11 and a half by 9 and a half. So I now need to change that to 9 and a half by 11 and a half background. So I now know what that is. Okay. And yeah, so I always try and pay attention as much as I can to what other people tell me, because sometimes they'll say, oh no, it's better this way. Well, why? And I can't tell you why. So I have been quilting for a little over 20 years. So I kind of know what I can and can't do. And there are certain things and how you cut and stuff. Everybody's different. So for me, the reason why I bought that cutting machine, and I'm not using it now because it's a small project, but if I was doing a large quilt, I can't do that motion for long times because of the conjecture thing in my hand. It causes a lot of pain, and then I start to shift when I cut, so my pieces don't come out. So that's why I bought that. But I will say, normally don't have a problem in how I do it, but everybody's different, you know. So just if somebody else says, hey, no, try it this way, this is much quicker, easier. So long as you get that end result and it's a good quality cut or good quality sew, that's really what matters, right? Not that, oh, traditionally it's done this way. Well, traditionally it might be done that way, but technology sometimes says you can now do it this way and get to the end result just as well, right? All right, so our dark red solid, which is our quarter yard, we need to cut 2 1-inch strips. All right, so I need, this is where sometimes it will get tricky, is if you fold your fabric, you need to be careful about where you make sure that nothing is wrinkled in those folds, because that can cause you to have an offcut as well. So let me bring this to the edge. Let me square it off just a smidgen here. And I know there are people that say, yeah, don't do it. Okay, if you say. All right, so with the dark solid, we're going to cut 2 1-inch strips for the inner border. From that, we will subcut. So let's go ahead and cut that first. So we'll do all our first original cuts first. So we're going to cut 2 1-inch strips. And normally when they tell you, you're going to cut with the length. or I'm sorry, with the width. So, you know, I folded it, it's folded in half, right? So if I measure it out, it should be, if I opened it all the way up, it should be between 40 and 44 inches, depending on the fabric. Sometimes they can be larger depending on what kind of fabric it is. But most fabric is 44 inches. So they fold it in half and it's 22. That's where, you know, if you get a whole yard and you cut it, and then you cut it, to a half yard, or even if you get a half yard and you cut it in half at that 22 inch, that's a fat quarter yard, but it's not really a quarter yard because it's not the full length. That's why it's called a fat quarter. Okay. So, but what I do is I fold it in half. So it's 22, and then I'll fold it again. So you get, an 11 inch. Okay. So, and that's how I am cutting. So here's my two ends of my fold. So that's where the 44, and then it's half again. So 1 inch. And we need 2 of these, correct? 2 1-inch strips. And, okay, yeah, you can see. I don't know if this other light, I think the above light is causing that glimmer right here, and I apologize for that. But I need to try and get as much light as I can in here. We need cut two strips that are a 1.5 inch. So 1.5 inch. And this is what I love about this ruler. You can get the rulers and then use the single. I can't hold those very well. That's why I love this ruler. It's by Fiskars. And there's a 1.5. And I need one more of that. So, but we, so there's that. We've got 1, 2 of those. And we need 2 more 1.25 inch strips for the binding. Okay, so 1.25. That is correct. 1.25. 1.25. That is, so it will end up being 3/4 of an inch. Okay. That's a weird size binding, but okay. 1.25. Coming up. We need 2 of those. All right, so we are on 3/4 there. There's a quarter. So we need to go to the 1/2 inch mark. All right. And then we have a small strip left. Appears to be almost 2 inches. So we'll keep this over here in case we need something. Because you never know. I always keep my straps. You just don't know. Sometimes, well, especially if I'm doing a large quilt, I will buy extra. Because sometimes you make mistakes. So, out of these, we're going to have to do some sub-cutting. Now, the 1.25 strips, okay, we do not have to do any sub-cutting on them. So, let me grab my little stickers here, and I'm going to put 1.25 inch binding, because I know that that's what that's going to be for. Okay, and then I'm going to set it over here with my other pieces, and then we're going to have to subcut these. So let's set those aside, and we'll take the first 1 inch cuts, and it says subcut 2 1 11.5 inch strips. So we will, I know this must be for around the border. So let's cut it this way. See, this is where a smaller square one comes in really handy, but I don't have one. I had one, I don't know what happened to it. But I just use this, it's not a big deal. But I do like it because it, very easy to change the blade on this because it takes a standard rotary cutter blade. It has a non-slip grip, so it shouldn't slide too much. You know, occasionally it does, but not normally. All right, so then we need an 11.5, correct? An 11.5. Double check it. 11.5. Okay, one more time, take a look. I need 2 1 inch by 11.5. So because that's doubled, let's make sure because it was off here on the fabric. Okay, there is 2 strips. All right, and this will not be long enough, obviously, because that leaves me one big long strip, but I can't get 2 10.5 inch strips from that. So, because you would need a 21 inch strip, and that is too short. So we will keep this for backup, right? So there's those 2. And we're going to take this one, is our 1 inch. We're going to square off and take off that little end down here. I always keep those little pieces. And it does take a little patience. And I know not everyone has it, but you know, if you just take your time, if you need to, take a little breather from time to time, and that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do, right? So, okay. Then we need this one to be a 10.5 inch strip. So, 10.5. Seems like a little waste, but sometimes they typically will give you just enough that if you make a mistake, you'll have enough left over, you know. And sometimes you can use these if you want to do 2. You'll have extras. You don't have to cut more fabric with that. So here's a 10.5 inch, 2 10.5 inches that we subcut from our 1 inch strips. Okay, so let me write that down. 2 each 10.5, 2 each 11.5. Inner border. All right, and in this video we're just going to cut everything out, and then the next video we'll do, you know, some piecing and all that stuff. So okay, then we need from our second cut, I don't think, yeah, we don't need to do any subcutting for this one because this is now our outer border. Okay, so outer border. Now, what I am going to do though is I am going to cut those end pieces off because those are your salvage ends. That's what they call them. Your salvage ends. And that's what I meant to say earlier is my salvage ends were together when they were folded together. your fabric will measure 22 inches, or it should. So, all right, so those are those, and I apologize for the snoring. My Uber is down there having her nap. You know. Okay, so we are finished with those. All right, we're gonna set those aside now. The cream and red print from the fat quarter, I have already cut those because remember I started with this thinking it was, I marked it as the fat quarter for, and instead of marking it for the blocks, I thought it was for the background. So, but there was enough from the fat quarter to actually, when I cut that other piece, to actually cut these out. So I had to kind of hand cut them smaller. But you will cut from the fat quarter. You are going to cut one 2-inch strip. So remember, with your fat quarter, you're going to fold it in half from the selvage end to the other, because that's a 22-inch strip. Okay, so you can either lay it out. Hopefully, if you're like me, I have a mat that's only 24, so you sometimes have to fold them down a little bit. Just be careful when you do. Just make sure there's no creases in it. Cut one strip that is 2.5 inches. Okay, so 2.5 inches, and then from that strip, you're going to subcut it down from a 2.5 inch to a 6.5 inch. Okay, so you need one of these because that is where the joy is going to get embroidered in there. Then you will cut 5 2-inch strips. Okay, and then with those 2-inch strips, you're going to subcut 2-inch squares. So you're going to cut 2-inch strips, and then from there you're going to cut 2-inch, 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 2-inch to equal 48 2-inch squares. Okay, so we'll put this over here. I don't need to mark it because I'm pretty sure I know what that is and what it's for. So now, let's see, we are at 32 minutes. Okay, we're doing pretty good. The red prints from each of the three cut 16 2-inch squares for a total of 48-inch red squares. So we can do this a number of ways. We can cut these individually, or because there's 3, having this ruler is kind of nice because now I have all 3 layers, and I will just square them up. Okay, let's do it this way. We can square all this up and cut them all out at the same time. If you want them all to be, a certain way, you can certainly do that. Okay. See, they cut these just a little bit bigger for me, which is awesome, so that I can square them off. That is awesome that they did that. And I know you guys are probably, if you've never done any quilting or sewing, you're like, it seems like a lot. It really isn't. It seems like it at first, but once you do a couple, you're like, oh, this is awesome. So, okay, so let's square this off just a smidgen, because we want 10-inch squares, right? So I'm just going to go around and square it all off. Okay. That's my squared end. I want that to lay flat. See, it's just a little bit over the 10, so but we'll make sure that this is all squared off over here. Okay. Everybody does it different. So there's my 10-inch right there. Some people have a squaring ruler that they use. Those are nice, but I just do it this way. And I may do things differently once my my finished craft room, depending on where we end up putting it. I will have a cutting table that I will use for cutting fabric, paper, all that stuff. I'll put my Dagobon and my cutter and my cutting mat and all that stuff in there. Okay, so now we have 10-inch. We have 10-inch squares. They're all squared up. So now, pull out some of that thread so it doesn't get caught in there. We need 2-inch squares for a total of 48. So I have 3. So I do believe I need, what, 20, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 16 cuts, right? 16 cuts. So, or 16 squares. I'm just going to cut it all in 2-inch squares. That should be 5, right? Because it's 10-inch. And it should give me 42. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. We shall see. Okay, here's one. Because we're going to have to make multiple cuts here. 2. That's why I like doing it from the other side. My ruler stays on the fabric and keeps it in place for me. 8. Where's my 8? There we go. Okay, so there are 5. So 3-inch strips together. This is where that cutter comes in really handy, because you can just put that square in there and away you go. I know, it's not unorthodox, but who said everything must be, you must do it, right? So, I got a thread hanging there, but that's okay. Hopefully it will cut when we cut these down. Okay, so I've realigned. So we have a 10-inch square again. And I'm going to come down here. And if you just take your time, don't rush. You know, I know a lot of people want things done a certain way. So there's 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 per. There's going to be plenty and extras to go around, I do believe. There's, I don't know, is it supposed to be 48 of, no, just a total of 48. So there is going to be 30 right there. Okay. Because remember, we got 3 layers. Oh, that one. Yep. Okay, and then there's 45. And we're going to have extras, but that's okay. It's good to have some extra, just in case, especially if you're a beginner. You know, never hurts. And then if you don't use the extras, so that didn't, okay, it did. So there's 45, 46, 47, 48 right here. So, and then I'll take these extras and set them aside, right, for in case. And what I don't use, I can always use them in something, you know, crafting. They're pretty red squares. So I'm going to put them over here in my pile. And we already know what these are for. They're 2-inch squares for the border. And then that is it for our cutting, because we're going to keep our big piece of 18 by 20 for our backing. You will need to get a piece of batting inside. Batting, for those of you who probably quilted or have done some sort of sewing project, embroidery or anything, you already know cotton batting is probably the best. But if you're doing just for quilting a big, huge quilt that you're going to put on the bed and keep you warm, cotton batting is the best. And you can use the poly, totally up to you. You can use the poly for the for doing your batting for wall hanging. Problem with the poly is that the poly is very thick. So you are going to end up with a very thick wall hanging. A lot of people just want them very nice and thin, kind of like you would with a picture. So the cotton batting is best. I normally buy either the natural, I will buy the white too as well. I'm not impartial, it's still cotton. Just some people don't like it because the white is bleached. This is the natural color, it's off-white. But you will need a piece that is 18 by 20. I have not cut mine down yet. I will not cut it down until my top is finished to make sure that, you know, I don't have any issues. So I've had that happen before where, you know, it tells you 18 by 20, but you end up not knowing how. All your seams are good, but you end up with an 18 by 20 and a half. But they never told you that in the pattern. So then you're off and you have to recut and do all this stuff, and it's a waste. So those are the last things I always cut. You know, I cut those to shift. So, okay, so that is our cutting for this project. I'm glad you guys are going to, hopefully you guys will join along. You don't have to necessarily have the exact same fabrics. If you've got some fabric in your stash that is tan and or cream colored and red, you can certainly use that. Make sure you go to the Red Button Quilt Company and purchase your pattern though. Okay, so we want to make sure that we give them props for this, you know what I'm saying? So we don't want to be stealing their pattern. So make sure you go and do, and if you want to follow along, like I said, I will leave that in the description box below. So hopefully you guys will quilt along. That'll be fun. Our next one will be to make our blocks. And I don't know, I think this might be like a 3 or maybe 4 video thing. I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, guys, thanks for joining me. Until next time, plenty of hugs, loves, and blessings. Bye, guys.